that are not what I need to have open. But
Well, you're
those
not
are all
sharing your
tabs.
screen.
I know, but I have to find what I need to share.
Wait, are we
How?
live now?
We are live
Oh
now. It's two
no.
Well, well,
thirty.
well. All right, I got something important to say. I'm gonna say.
All
Okay.
I
right, I'm
want
gonna play the
everybody.
Build with DIMO theme song now.
Oh yeah, is that what we're doing? Did you guys make a
That's
theme
what
song while I
that's what
was
we're
on?
doing.
Because that would actually be awesome.
No, but I could definitely
Oh
play you a
god.
bass riff if you want to for the theme song, but probably won't translate very well because it's an acoustic.
I have this
All
like
right,
pad of stuff here that I can play with if you want. Like, here, wait. Like, what's this thing?
all right. I would say while you guys figure that out, welcome to another episode of Build with Demo. I want everyone to do a personal favor. Just remember me this way because I'll never be more tan than I am now. I was on an island for 2 weeks, and it's only going to go downhill from here. So I really want people to just appreciate this nice glow because it's a once, pretty much in a lifetime kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's
everyone
only
knows
downhill
you.
from
Yeah,
here.
I had to fill in. We had to fill in with special guests for you. So welcome back.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Shout out to our special
Guys,
guests though who made it. It was great. Fun
dude, we've got to be at like the 3 month mark at this point, which is really that's kind of cool actually to think that we started this journey 3 months ago and we stuck with it. And I think we've made actually a good amount of progress.
It's making my fear of commitment just like non-existent. You know.
That's for like the 6 month mark. That's when we have to really uncover those issues.
Oh, okay, we're still getting there. Then we're
I
still.
would say for those of you guys tuning in and don't know anything about Demo, obviously I don't know how you got here, but kudos to you, I guess. Go check us out on, Discord or go to the brand new website, demo.zone. It's spiffy, it's awesome, it makes us look really good. Of course, download the app, get your car connected, and yeah, Ben and I and Challen, I should say, are building some cool stuff on Demo. Ben, what are we doing today?
Uh, we are gonna look at some enhancements that we are making to our data, which is what you actually see in the app. We did a little bit of work over while Aaron was gone on creating some more sort of good visualizations for the data that people are receiving, as well as trying to add a little bit of help and context to it, so that it's just a little more understandable and we are adding a little more value than just like,
Mhm.
you know, kind of the state of things now. So if you have our app, if you go into your vehicle tab right now and you tap on, I think it's the range widget that says,
Mhm.
it's the thing right below your, big wavy vehicle card. Um, Basically, what it does is it takes you over to a dump of all of your, like, basically every data field that we get for your car. And it's not displayed very cleanly or very well. And that was really, it's just one of those things that like we never intended for it to be this long before we addressed it. It was sort of like a carryover from just doing some proof of concept stuff where we were like, okay, what could we display? How could we display it? And we had this V1 of the app almost a year ago, 6-7 months ago, where we were displaying things kind of in that way. And then when we started doing our redesign and a little more of our just like, okay, now, hey, we've done some research, got some data, like let's, put it out there. Uh, that stuff sort of never got the proper attention that it needs. And
Yeah.
so what I did over the last couple weeks, along with Dora, shout out to Dora, is we made some, mostly her, but we made some a cool little sort of reusable system that we can use when we have sort of different data fields. We're dressing things up, and now when we support new types of data, we know kind of how we can easily just drag and drop, build a little screen, and then hand it to you guys with components that you'll have already made.
Mhm.
And it'll be easy as we decode more cars and do more types of data and all this stuff. So cool little step for us here.
Ben, before we dive into that, because I definitely have a lot of questions just in what you were talking about with the modular system and be able to build on that. But I think you highlighted something that's super important, and it comes to, I mean, it definitely comes into play when we talk about redesigns, but also even just like in the beginning of projects, it's this idea of like the 80-20 rule, where we know that like 80% of the usage is going to be done within like 20% of the app. That's where we focus. That's where we start when we do our redesign. That's where we start when we do new things. But like, I mean, obviously we're talking about this item as if it's outside that 20%. It's in that other 80% that's used not with every session, maybe 1 out of 5 sessions, maybe 1 out of 10 sessions, maybe never for some users. At what point do we say, like, okay, it is time to revisit this? And then how do you make that judgment?
Well, this was a bit of like, I mean, this is a bit of like, one, you were out for a little while, and there was a, your team needed some other stuff to work on.
Yep, true.
And so this was like a natural point for me to say, okay, hey, let's revisit something that definitely people do get eyes on, that we know is an area that we're lacking, but and like now we have some, it's not downtime, but it's time that you're not there, where I had some of our guys do some other more low hanging stuff that we just never got to, which people will see in some upcoming releases. Something like this, like, we could have left this how it was, but the reason that we went on and did this redesign of it, or it's not even, I guess it's a redesign, but like, I even hesitate to call it a redesign. The reason that we did this work is there are more features and more types of data and more just things that are coming on that tab, that whether or not you actually care to check stats about your range every day, it sort of like, we need a system to accommodate those things that are coming up for us, and to not have the things that exist fit in that system, it's going to look disjointed. But it's also like, it's an easy way for us to say, hey, like, I already know what all the range data is, I already know what all the like miles driven data is, like, that stuff we already have. So now I can easily play with like, here's what we're going to do, like, here's different ways we can display it without a little without much ambiguity or uncertainty there. So
yeah, I would also say is like,
the work is really like in anticipation of future stuff. Like, we need the system to do future stuff.
I kind of saw that coming, and like, I know, especially like my programming work, there's a lot of times like I'll put something in knowing that I'm going to revisit it later on. Like, we're going to, I wouldn't really call it a placeholder, but it's almost like, okay, yeah, let's call it a placeholder. It's really like, I want to put something out there so I can condition the user to expect this, knowing that in a couple months we're really going to have a much more elevated experience. So when we think about vehicle intelligence, is this something that we knew that we weren't going to have the time in the beginning, but we really wanted to lean into it later on and really deliver something here for the user? Or what's your thoughts on that? Like,
yeah, I mean, that is exactly that. Like, the way that the old app used to be laid out was more in, like, we ended up with vehicle intelligence the way that it exists now, basically as a result of exactly that, of a, like, we'll come back to it later. And we're coming back to it later, and I'm hoping that the stuff that we put together here is going to add more value for people. Like, they're going to get something out of the data that they're already getting. But really, I mean, the real value in this is that now we have this system, and now we have some different components, and now we know, we're getting our interactions down, so that as some of these, like, we have things coming up like imminently that I'm going to be working on like later today and next week, which I probably won't spoil on this, that are going to directly use that system. And that's kind of the value in it. That's kind of why we want to come back to something like this.
Well, it's awesome. Well, without further ado, let's see some cool stuff.
Sure thing, man. Let's pull it up.
Launch it.
More like ship it. Ship it,
Wait,
people.
Ship
Shaolin,
it.
can they hear you, Shaolin? Can people hear
Oh
you
yeah,
right
everyone
now?
can hear me. Oh
Okay,
yes.
I don't know. Sometimes you're the producer and we can't. Like you're like only I can hear. Only you can hear me.
No, they can
He's
hear me on Twitter and YouTube.
Okay. Cool.
okay. Awesome.
All right.
Yeah,
So
we should really abandon just the producer element if we're doing anything outside of Riverside, because then it's just like
Mhm.
another host.
got it. All right. So without further ado, the vehicle intelligence stuff that we worked on. I'll pull it up over here. So currently, actually, let me move you over so no one's distracted. So currently, you people may know stuff like this. I'll hide the VIN.
Mhm.
You know, you just kind of get this dump of like, here's a bunch of stuff that we got from your car. This is made up of multiple screenshots, so forgive me.
Mhm.
But you kind of get this dump, right? And it's like, cool, I could scroll this or whatever. But what this doesn't allow us to do is it doesn't allow us to get much deeper in any sort of scalable way with this data. So like if we started adding more stuff around range or more stuff around battery health, all it's doing is like pushing this list down farther. It's
Yeah.
just making this thing bigger and bigger. And that's never really the intent here. So like people may be used to something like this and we think, okay, this is not all that useful. And like I said, it doesn't really set us up for anything in the long run. You know, if we want to
Yeah.
surface different stuff, we want to grow this, we just get more fields or more granular with it. So
Do you? I got a question. So there was a point where we liked this design. Like we really liked it. We thought it was great. Do you think it wasn't so much that like
Well,
times changed, but more that we just outgrew this?
I think we liked this because these things were initially set up the way
Mhm.
that I've done them now, where you would tap into like your range and you would
Mhm.
see your, we had it as like a little like vehicle vitals thing where
Mhm.
it wasn't like the big dump of stuff. And we
Yeah.
liked it because it fit the design language that we were working with, that we were still kind of maturing. It fit
Mhm.
that a little better, just visually, but also like it was set up in a way to be more scalable, and it was set up like the way you got there and what you were actually dealing with was much more um it felt better than like just a scrollable list of stuff. Like if I want to
Yeah.
find tire pressure, I need to go remember where it is in this list versus like just tapping on it. So I think that's why we liked it. Uh, but again, it's like our design language has evolved a little bit.
I like the
And
phrase design
yeah,
language. I'm gonna start throwing that around. I'm gonna.
have you
You'll,
not
you'll
heard
hear
that
me.
before? Oh,
I think I have. I just now that you say it, and I'm here and I'm
oh,
listening to you, I like it. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna just start working into my everyday conversation.
there you go. But it has changed a bit. Like we don't do, in the new stuff that we've shipped and in the new stuff that we're working on, there are certain things that we just don't do anymore. We
Your
don't
fonts are
do
different, that's for sure.
the italics anymore. Like we don't
Hmm.
do numbers in this weight anymore. We don't
Hmm.
do we're trying to move away from graphs that look just like this and do something a little more elegant.
Hmm.
You know, so there's like it's not totally outside of what we do, but like there's if you look at the app today, there's a lot less like fully on black stuff. It's a lot
Yep.
more couch, we've got more widgets, we've got more other colors in there, right? Like the thing is evolving a little bit, and there's still plenty
Hmm.
of on black stuff, which I'll show you in the handoff, but it's like things grow and you need that product to feel cohesive, and not just like
So
a
I'm
legacy
gonna
thing.
ask the $1 million question here, and that
Go
is
for it.
before you show off like the new stuff, which is like how much of us moving to the new experience is like necessary versus like you just being sick of looking at the old style.
uh it's necessary in my mind for a number of reasons. the
Okay,
first
let's hear them.
being the first being like we need to set these things up, like I've said, to be scalable. So
Hmm.
we are going to be surfacing, as we decode more cars, as we get more users online where we get different types of data, uh, we are going to sort of need something that can accommodate all of those in a much more elegant way. um, Second is, there are a lot of cars where we do get kind of limited data from. So if there are lightweight things that we can do to make that experience a little better and feel a little more immersive or give a little more context and value to that data, then somebody's car that we really haven't decoded all that much for, they can still get more out of the product than what they have.
Yeah.
But the other thing is like getting these to feel like this doesn't, what we're looking at does not feel premium. It doesn't feel particularly good. And we've talked about trust before. And,
Yep.
you know, I need this to, it's a tough sell sometimes to be like, yeah, people are or aren't going to trust this because of the way it looks or the way it feels. That can be a tough sell sometimes. And I completely get that. And that's not what drives this whole thing. But, you know, making things feel cohesive builds trust with people. It builds trust with people if we want them to go and transact with, you know, other people that we know. Whatever they want to do with their data, I want them to see their data, not just see a number, but understand it a little bit more and make an informed decision about what they're doing with the data. So this isn't some Ben wanted it to look.
No, I think it's fair. I want to talk about some like the technical challenges when we dive into the new thing, because I know that you and I have talked about, I don't want to label them inconsistencies, but we know that we have different data sources, whether you're like a Tesla car or on smart car, or we have like a hardware connection with you. We just get different data, and design has to mold to that to basically, because you might have multiple vehicles on your profile in your account, one being a Tesla, another one being like working with our hardware device. And
one's a not decoded AutoPie, right?
Yep.
Like the difference in experience from a Tesla user to a non-decoded AutoPie is pretty substantial. Like you're missing a good chunk of the features that we've got at present just because we're trying to decode all these cars. So again, part of what I'm doing is like, how can I make that experience with like a limited pool of data still feel like, hey, I got value out of this thing that I bought? And they're working to improve it. They're working to decode the car. They're working to get more, but like, hey, I got value out of this thing that I bought, you know?
And I would say that one of the failings or shortcomings of the current away from, it almost made you feel like if you're switching from one vehicle to the next, that something's missing, therefore something is broken, because you would expect to see similarities, and it wasn't built up like with the modular system we're going to, and I know you're going to show this off in a second. It's going to almost like it's going to mold to really give you the best of your situation. And that's what we're working on, both on the design side and the technical side.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I still owe you some empty states on this too. So,
yeah, of course. But with the current one, it just looked like we had holes based off of like where you were. So I'm just kind of adding to your point there, but that was one thing I personally saw in our experience, especially moving from multiple device. We have a internal account that we do have that has like basically every kind of connection, and you would just see moving from one to another. It was just totally different, but with holes.
Yeah. And we'd see that in support, you know, we'd see that in the Discord, kind of like, what's wrong? Why don't I have this? And it's like messaging around, hey, why you don't have that much data? You know, that's a thing that we need to do as well. And, you know, getting the most out of the data that you do have is something I want to try to do for people. Do you want to get into it real quick?
Yeah, but I want to see your thought processes before you actually get into it. I saw you had some inspiration pieces there. Let's see them.
No, these are more references around a specific graph
that
we're looking at. Yeah. I mean, this is not uncommon.
This is 100% original, you know, bin.
No, I mean, look, these are like, this is how we do some of this stuff. We'll go in and I'll drop like, this is too much. Like, let's avoid this because like this is a way too small tap target. Whatever this is.
Is there anyone out there in the wild that you saw that you're like, not necessarily that you like copied or that you like were really inspired by, but somebody that you just feel like does analytics on a mobile device really well?
Yeah, these guys.
Yeah.
You may have heard of Apple before.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, once or twice, only because
there are things that they do well. There are things that they don't do well, also. And you know what we came up with is definitely inspired by some of the stuff that they do, but it's also God, I'm gonna forget the name. There's an app called Zones. It's a workout app uh,
Mm.
that we really like. I think they do analytics really well. It's really they have really good visuals in there. It's a really cool sort of dark mode app like we have that
Mm.
I think they nail it pretty well. And that's all about data viz. That's all about like look at your heart rate while you were here, look at your heart rate while you're on a map, and like those are improvements and functionalities that like I would love to move towards.
Mm.
But right now the sort of the goal with this chunk of stuff was like, hey, let's take what we have and let's extract as much value out of what we have. Like, what's the maximum value I can get out of a number that tells you how far your car can go right now?
Yeah, that's
Without
huge though.
without asking you to plot it on a map, or without
Mhm.
asking you to do something that is going to be like way more of a lift than we need to do for some like in the margins kind of work, which is really what this is right now. So
Yeah, and I mean, I think we've talked about this before, and you've heard me harp on this a number of times. I think my favorite thing still about Demo is that when you've got a connected vehicle, checking where your fuel is at or your charge is at is so seamless and so easy. You take the phone out of your pocket, you tap the icon, there's a face scan, and then you see it.
mhm.
It's that simple. I mean, this is such a different paradigm from like, oh, like how much gas do I have in the tank? Or, oh, what's my battery at right now? And then having to go outside or use a different app to do it. Like, I think we even do it better than like the OEM apps in that fashion. Like, it's just that simple for a task that I think that a lot of people just like you would check the time, you can now check your fuel level on your main vehicle. That's so
The
cool.
camera tracking your face is just too much for me. I cannot handle.
Oh
I
yeah,
cannot handle this.
dude, it is definitely weird. It is fun.
I cannot handle. I cannot handle anything you're saying with this thing.
Oh
Uh,
wow. Okay, well we're gonna have to
no,
walk.
leave it on. No, leave it on. It's funny
But
to
do you
me.
like it or do you not like it? Because it's always fun to critique other people's technology.
I'm not
And this is
critiquing anybody. I'm just saying it's
no,
like
I know, but like
you're talking and the whole thing is just like sliding around. I don't know. It's funny. Uh, God, stop it.
it
Okay,
goes in and out of focus. I don't like that.
I'm gonna get into what we actually did here. If you want to see a little process, yeah, there's that. Um, there's just like charting
Mhm.
iterations, like we've got some reference stuff in here. Like this is kind of skinny. Like, do we do it like with the widget system like we've got, or do we do it with you know anything else? A lot of this is my cryptic writing here. A lot of this is not all me. Like we have a team that's working on this, and
Yeah.
we are actually growing our team. And so a lot of the things that we look at on here are now going forward. Hopefully, are not going to be all Ben did this. And I don't like just showing off other people's stuff.
Yeah.
But we're growing the team a little bit, and so it is no longer just Ben designs everything. Like exclusively in a vacuum, which is nice. Um, so if we get to what we actually ended up with, there's a number of little screens here that are related to the types of data that people will probably be familiar with. So I'm going to run this guy as a prototype here. And let's just say I am on my vehicle tab. I'm looking at Old Faithful right here.
Hmm.
And I want to look at my range, and ignore that it says 30 and the screen I'm about to show you does not say 30, but let's say I tap into my range, right?
Hmm.
Previously, we would just get that data dump. Now, what we're moving toward doing is saying, hey, here's the max range we recorded from your car. Here's when it was updated, as well as your capacity if you've got an EV. We're
Hmm.
going to plot out sort of how far away you are from your max that we've recorded, up until like this is where you are now, giving people a little bit more insight into just like what has my average range been throughout the week or the
Hmm.
day. We've got this time selector component that we've used on our fleet tab, which we can recycle and stick in here. And you could tab through this thing and say, okay, I'm going to press and drag and see, where my range was on the different days throughout the week, right? Is that
Yep.
groundbreakingly useful? Not necessarily, but It's data we've already got. It's a chart we've already got. Let's just smush them together. Uh, Something else that I think is cool that we're exploring doing is some really basic math that we can do on the front end. So,
Yeah.
surfacing insights to a user about what they, what's happening with their range, specifically in this case. So, we can say, hey, your range was lower than last week, and this is the max that we've ever recorded from your car. But I think the coolest thing, or the most valuable thing that we're doing here is actually this tip section here, which these are all placeholder, obviously. But in each of these intelligence little screens that we put together, we've got this tips component, which we've got a whole bunch of tips related to different screens that you're looking at, uh, which we can just tell people how they can better sort of treat their vehicle and how they can better, whether it's extend the life of the vehicle, extend the range of the vehicle, whatever it is. We're going to try to surface some tips here to people so that they can help make better decisions about what they do with their car, derived from kind of their data. So um, that's just a quick little thing. It will. Oh yeah.
I like this. It reminds me a lot of like Google Analytics. Like most of the time, you just want to see like where your current users are at or real time users, whatever they have.
Mm-hmm.
But every once in a while, you want to be able to do like a little bit of like research, like what was my high over the last week or something like that. And the cool thing about these tools is that it's just like on demand. Like, I mean, you and I, we're not kidding ourselves into thinking that people are going to use this every day or something like that.
No,
It's
your
more about
range
having that
is your
power
range. Yeah.
when you want it.
It's about building the place where this stuff can live so that,
Yep.
like I said, as we start to say, hey, maybe we're doing some sort of math based on like your range is doing this and you've been connected for X amount of time and we've noticed a trend in your range. Like your
Mm-hmm.
max range is always going down, right? Why would that be? And if you're wondering why that would be, we could say, hey, your max range is down 6%, your max range is down 5, like it's never going up. You may look at a tip and say, hey, I need to, whether I need a new battery, whether my driving habits are terrible now, whether we can correlate that with, geolocation, where it's like my max range is always way lower. Oh yeah, I moved to New York. I sit in traffic a lot. So my range is going to go down because I'm going to
Yep.
burn a lot of gas sitting in traffic, right? Like,
Yep.
these are just like the thing that excites, or the thing that I like about this is like, that's just math that we can do on the front end. I don't know why this is spaced like this, but why is that spaced like that? That's just math that we can do on the front end, and I think that is neat. Why are you spaced like this? I
Is that
just
some
made
weird
that's,
hug thing?
yeah, there we go. That's a little.
All right.
I just made these into like actual components. Now that we know what we're doing with them, so I could show that later. Regardless, so here's a component that we've already built, that you guys already have for the fleet tab.
Yep.
So again, a little simple time selector. And then again, we need different states for these things. So when it's really low, we can, we've got it here. We can tell you to go fuel up or whatever. And then here we've got like a really nice healthy one. I'll move on real quick. We can kind of blitz through these. I don't want to take up this whole time. But another one that I like is the connected miles one. So
That looks super good.
these
Super
are
slick.
we're just trying to keep it simple here. Here's the amount of miles that I've driven with DIMO. So here's the amount again. Look at odometer last week. What's the difference? Simple math. Plus 120 this week. Great. Here's my total odometer. And here's when it was updated. And then same thing. I can tell how much am I driving every day this week. Plot it out on the graph. Same time selector. Calculate the average here, and I can say, great, that's how much I've been driving. Same thing, got a different little insights component here where I can tell you, hey, you did more this week than last week, you did more last week than this week, or they're about the same, right? 3 states, code them in, that's it. Same thing, tips over here. Very simple. I'll show 2. This one we'll leave for now, but I'll show 2 more. One, we're doing a cool little new thing with the tire pressure. I think we're gonna get
Super nice.
we're gonna get some better images in there and surface like, hey, this is low.
You think we could ever get to a spot where we change it by body type?
That's what I want to do. So what
That'd be
I'm trying
so
to do,
slick.
what we're trying to do is like we're not going to have a top down render for every single vehicle ever, but what I would like to do and what we've heard about, and I fully agree with as a car person too, is like getting in the app and not seeing your car, or like if you have a white BMW, seeing a red BMW is annoying for people who haven't claimed their vehicle ID. Go
Mhm.
claim your vehicle ID. Uh, then you can
We do it
change the
on
color.
purpose. It's
Then
a
you can change the color.
little nudge.
Yeah, but like getting in there and like the decision here is like keep it kind of a wireframe so that no one's like my car's green and this car's like silver. Like no, it's a wireframe. But doing a sedan, a truck, a crossover, an SUV, a minivan, right? Like
Yeah.
just getting those together down the line, so we can then map them by the device definition in there and say, great, you have a minivan. Here's a minivan. It's top down. It's your minivan. That we know it's a minivan because like we do know it's a minivan. We're just not showing it right now.
Yep.
The last two that I'll show you is our charge habits if you have an EV. So we're already doing some of this where we're telling you, hey, you're overcharging or undercharging, or you're in the healthy zone. Same thing here, so we can plot them out, kind of what your charge looked like. Insights again, where before we had them as like as this, where it's like here's your my screenshot's cut off. Here's your like charge level, your battery health, your observations and healthy observations. It doesn't give you a lot of context on what this is. Whereas here now we can say, great, here's your healthy range. We got a little eye with a little tray that can tell you exactly what you're looking at. Reusing the tips components again so people can understand why is this important, like why should I care about this. And then the thing that I think is cool about this is if you tap into the charging habits here, I haven't actually set it up to do it with a prototype yet, so bear with me. If you tap into the charge habits, that's when you actually get the more detailed graph where we can plot out what your charge habit actually looked like over.
So you're making my life extra easy. That's so
yes.
so
I know, right? But you know what I'm saying? Like this is like again, it's progressively like how deep do you want to go in this data? Do you want to just see, do you want to just see that you have excellent charging habits, great, and kind of go like, oh, okay, don't charge above 80%, got it? Or do you want to go and see like when did I charge above 80%?
Yep.
what charge was I at? Like, and then I can say, oh yeah, that was when I left the car on, or I didn't set a charge limit anywhere. So, it's just like most people don't want to see this because this doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people until they begin to learn more about it when they're here.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like this one's a little more of a lift than say like the tire pressure one, or, plotting the miles driven on a bar graph, which we're already kind of doing. But again, it's like, would we rather have a little bit of a heavier lift on something like this for a couple days to give people, I think, a little more context and a little more value and a little better understanding about their data, or would we just like leave it? And since we're already doing already undertaking this, we're doing it. So that's definitely not all that we've been up to, but this is a little slice of like what it looks like to revisit a feature or revisit something in the app that isn't just like we have certainly revisited things just to make them look better. This is one of those things where it's a combination of I need this to look better, but I also need this to scale. And if I want to do something where I'm like, hey, give me a value or something. Like if I want to plot out like, I don't know. Let's say we're gonna plot out. This is not what it would look like, but like let's call trips. Let's say trips. Let's not say trips because that would be more visual. I don't know. Give me like here's just like battery voltage or whatever.
Yep.
Right.
That's one that we have to do in the future.
Yeah. Let's just say like here it's this right, and now I can say this was nothing to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of this, get rid of this, center this thing, and cool. Now I can say charge level, and we'll leave it at that. We'll say our average is 11 volts or whatever, and let me do one of my favorite plugins here. Let's throw some lorem ipsum in here. Here's a sentence that we'll have in here about what you're looking at. And now let's do an insight. Your charge level or your battery health has remained constant between last week and this week. Right? This week, 12 volt average, and last week 12 volt average. Okay, and we probably don't need these two for this, so let's get rid of them. Some interesting use of auto layout here. And now let's do a couple tips. Let's say tip. Do I have tips as a component? Yes, I do. I like this one because this one is actually all dressed up nicely. Let's put it there, and cold weather can affect your 12 volt battery. Make sure it's charged, or you might get stranded somewhere. Let's see, where do we get that data? Ben's brain. Okay, right? And now, like, we would do something a little more than that, but now that's that. Like, now we have the bones to go to an engineer and say, hey, we're probably going to display this, like, this kind of stuff. Like, what do you have? Like, what data do you have for me? And here's what I'm thinking, right? But I've got this thing, like, that took 45 seconds, right? Then that's because we've created this system that we can just sort of drag some stuff in. Let's say, you know what, honestly, like this, I want some more different insights. Like, let me just grab this tip and drop it in here, and that component and drop it in there. And let's say we start mapping something to weather and just be like, your voltage dropped when it was 26 degrees outside. Outside, he can smell. That's kind of the point of doing a whole system like this. So
go back to the view where we showed off all the ones that we're ready to move forward with.
Yep.
So I think the thing that's nice about what you've currently laid out, if I'm looking at every individual piece of intelligence, I love that they all kick off with something extremely actionable, which is the point of this. Like if we go into the range one, we see like front and center, like what your current range is in the grand spectrum. If we go to the next one,
these are
this one. Yeah, like connected miles is kind of funny because in a perfect world, the connected miles and your actual miles are going to be the same. So this is just basically like your travel the last week, which is kind of nice. You can see like, hey,
it's also confirming that like it's building like the reinforcement that like you are connected, you are here.
Yep.
We have tracked this many miles,
Yep.
And if you begin to notice a disparity, and you can say like, why didn't I get tracked? I know that I drove, 200 miles this day, and DIMO only has, my odometer only went up 150. Like what gives, right? That also helps us troubleshoot a bit,
Yeah, perfect. So we've got like that one. Go to the next one. If we're looking at tires, this is obvious. It's highlighted red whenever something's below some sort of threshold, which is really great. If we go to the next one,
this one's the pain in the ass one.
But if we're looking not at like the deep dive, but like the main one we can see that like, hey, front and center, we can see like, hey, you've got excellent charging habits, and then we can even like show like in a really spiffy way that like I was good except for probably what is that Monday you were terrible, but yeah, that's it. Yep. You were out of range for that day. Yeah, that's great. It's totally actionable. Like, and that's one of the reasons why like moving over to this new system, it gives us the ability to kind of like highlight the actionable property of every piece of information without feeling like we're like over cluttering the rest of the screen.
Yeah. And I just wanted to feel, like down the line, there will be like, I'm going to dress some of these boxes up. Like these are the beginning to get like, hey, there's a bit of a wall of gray boxes on here, and I'm going to dress them up a little bit. Make them a little more engaging, stick some icons on them, maybe, whatever the case may be. Or maybe we leave it. Maybe we say, yeah, it's clean, it's simple, whatever. But, like the point is like now this feels like, hey, we actually know like this is how we do headers now. And everywhere that we get in, like it's a simple header, but this is how a header looks on one of these widget breakdowns, right? Makes my life easier, makes your life easier. You can grab that same component. I can hand it off to another designer and say, you're making a widget. Here's the header. Here's how it works. That's why we do stuff like this. So, yeah, I don't know. That's one of the little things that we've been working on the last few days, and doing a similar, like a little bit of a similar exercise for much later on, for the fleet tab as well. Just again to like, I don't want to just show you your data. Something that we talked about really early on when honestly when I first joined was like, we don't just want to return a value. We want to provide something. When I say a value, we don't want to just return a number. We want to provide value to somebody. And I think that we're starting to take some steps toward actually doing that. So,
yeah, let's dive real quick
with fleets is we can just take all this and do what I just did with that other little thing and just say, hey, same thing, basically the same. Like, take your fuel level or whatever, or your miles driven that we're already doing, and let's just plot it out. You can see it more visually. So.
Let's dive. Do you mind diving into the actual like vehicle home screen then for the particular vehicle, just to make sure like, because I think you and I can do a little bit of work here just to say like, I mean, at this point we're familiar or intimate enough with like Autopilot data versus smart car data versus like Tesla data. So in our worst case scenario, like how do you want to lay this out? Because for some vehicles we're not really getting good location information. Have you thought about like what we're going to do when we don't have an active map component?
Yeah, we need to do some work on that sort of thing, and that's sort of the next chunk of stuff that, if I'm completely honest and not BSing, I was waiting for you to get back to actually get going on. Well, I mean, you just have a better better, like it's easier to, like, you have better insight into that. Like, I have a list of fields that we get for different cars, but it's not always as simple as just like as just being like, cool, this is the AutoPie view, whereas like it may be different than somebody else's. And right now there's like one bar, basically there's one thing that just says, hey, go look at your AutoPie data, and it gives you that dump. That's not really a great experience for people. So building the system in this way, where these are all the same width and the same height, we've only got two sizes. That text needs updating. It's two sizes. It's either half width, full width. Lets us drag and drop a little bit based on the data that we get from different people. And so I can now, instead of just giving an AutoPie user a like tap in and just see like a few graphs or charts or whatever, depending on what their vehicle's decoding status is, we can break those things out. And to be completely honest, like we can just make not a lot feel a lot bigger. Like we can make a little feel bigger and add a little more value even pre-decoding this stuff. You know?
Yeah. I want to challenge you though, because I think this is something that we could work on together in this moment. Not that anything
In this
has to be
moment. Oh my
in
god.
this moment on the fly. I feel like not like we have to have anything set in stone, but I think just as a window to give the users kind of
Yeah,
a
let's
glimpse of what we deal with and like all the nuances that go into designs that really are what make it take so long. I mean, that's if we lived in a world where every user was on the same happy path and there was like one consistent thing, I think you and I could ship things out probably twice as fast, if not quicker.
5 times.
Like I don't even know what that world looks like because we just have never looked at that world.
No, a good chunk of my time is getting frustrated by some edge case.
Yeah.
Or
So
getting
I'm looking at an
frustrated by
edge case.
yeah.
I'm looking at an edge case in front of me where, okay, I've got values, but I don't have it's an ICE vehicle,
Yeah.
and my oil life isn't coming in. My
Yeah.
location data isn't coming in.
Yeah.
So the only thing I've really got are my current like fuel percentage, the range in terms of miles, and my connected miles. Nothing else.
Okay, so say it again.
Range, connected miles,
Yeah.
and fuel percentage, which we see at the top.
Okay. Well, the beauty of this is that I can just scrap the whole bottom section of this.
Even get rid of the map. I got no location data either.
Oh, you have no location data? Yeah, something like this. It looks awesome, right? No, it gets empty, and I mean, here's your screen size. So that's your height, right? That looks not ideal. Sorry, I'm getting messages from the UK about animation. So something like this, yeah. I mean, one of your answers could be, let's take this, full width widget here. So call it, there's my data online, but let's call it, let's say all these values get replaced. So here's range and it's 30 miles. Okay. And let's pull that out of there. Right. It still isn't great to have it like that, but we do have edge cases like that we need to account for, right? This doesn't look good. So
a lot of like
yeah,
and I know like we're not necessarily doing the style, but like obviously everybody knows like the Windows Phone was a bomb, it didn't last, and there's like a lot that goes into it, but the design was actually pretty revolutionary with like the different spaces and widgets and the idea that like we want to break uniformity because we know that certain things should take precedence over others.
Yeah.
Now, in a situation where we don't necessarily like want to bolster like the importance of these different data points, but we have a lot to play with if we've only got like two things that we can reliably say existed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there could be like there's more stuff we could do with this, I guess is the thing. Like,
well, do you see a world where like, in the connected miles screen, we do have that nice like bar chart on a daily. Do you see that coming?
That's what I'm doing right now. It's just the way that's the way that this component is set up. You know what? I already built one sort of like this somewhere else. I don't want to spoil everything over here. Here it is. Thanks, Dora. Plop, right? Like, could we, instead of that, do this? Could we take this and instead of that, okay, we gotta, why is that like that? Like, let's hypothetically say here is our, let's make a little arc, right?
Wow, you're quick.
Like, let's do an arc. Okay, I don't know, and this is ugly and clunky, like whatever, but
that was the smoothest arc I've ever seen in my life.
That's not how it's gonna work because it's gonna mess with the auto layout probably. But like if we do something like this, like 30 miles, right? Let's pretend that I like really meticulously. Why? Okay. here's why.
It's gonna drive you insane, isn't it?
It is gonna drive. Well, it's just the way that one of our components is set up. This is gonna bother me, but let's just
But I'm
hypothetically.
setting you up for another question, and I feel bad playing chess with you here. But
You're bugging me.
no, I know,
It's
but I'm
all,
setting
it's
you on
all
the
good.
spot because I actually like these components a lot. I think
I
they're
do
really
too.
cool.
Yeah.
So what do we do in the situation where like it's almost like these components are superior, but you only get the superior component if you have an inferior connection? You know what I'm saying? Like we're
Well, obviously, what you do is you buy a worse car, and I think that's
well,
really the solution.
it comes down to like a point of like customization. Do you see a world in which somebody could say like, I want like the small version of Connected Miles or the big version of Connected
See,
Miles
now
on
you're
my
kind
phone?
of you want
No, I'm
this.
not doing this on
You,
purpose. I'm just
you
saying
you want this? You want me to design that? You
no,
want to
no, no,
build
no, no,
that?
no, no, no. If I give you free reign,
Yeah,
I'll have the next
you
5
want to
years of
build that?
development
If
book.
you want to build that, I'd be down for it.
But I'm
No,
saying like
yeah.
I like these components. I like the little hints of color. I like the fact that it's
Mhm.
actionable without having an extra
That's
tap.
why I said we're spicing these up. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know.
But again, like we have on the left side there, like probably like a Tesla connection, which is just full of information that we're able to show the user. We do want to
Yeah.
condense it. So how do we say like what should be condensed and what should not?
Yeah,
Or
it sort of
yeah, I
depends
mean
because it's also a decision to make of like, do we want to just make the top level of all of the widgets be this,
mhm.
and have the top level, have the little preview on it. I kind of like it, but also on the flip side is that big card at the top that dominates a lot of the screen. That takes a lot of your attention. And
Oh, I'll
if
fight
I
for that one. That one's so cool.
Well,
That
yeah, but the point, like, I'm not saying we should deprecate it or
yeah.
anything, but I'm saying like that is very clearly like you're opening it to see your state of
Mhm.
charge or your state of your gas tank, right? You're opening it, you're seeing that there. It's big. It's the color of what's happening with your car. Like that's the thing. If I immediately underneath it throw like, and again, bear with me that this isn't like, I'm doing this quickly, but like if I throw in this and that and like a whole bunch of other really visual things, maybe we do it that way, but maybe it's too busy. And like towing a line there of like when I get on this screen, I don't know why it's going so slowly. All right. Uh, when I
Adobe
get
got
on the
bought or Adobe bought it.
Yeah,
Ever
thanks
since then, it
Adobe.
just
Uh, screen on the left, like let's shrink you down to the 812. Like that's the standard size that we're
Yep.
designing for here. Screen on the left, it's kind of clear what I'm looking at first. It's this big thing right here. There's a hint that there's stuff below it because something's below the fold, so I know I can scroll. I know I can slide the tray up and hopefully something will happen. And I get little bits of data, but they're not fighting for my attention.
Mhm.
I'm not necessarily saying that this doesn't like work, but I'm saying it's a consideration to be like, I'm getting on this screen, I've got this big blob of, here's my ID and here's a charge level and I can see this wave and it's all this, blue or yellow or red. And I've got controls on here. What am I supposed to do here? And
Mhm.
there's a lot of data that I'm just looking at, like, maybe that's not overwhelming to you or me because we've been staring at this for months now, but like
Yeah.
somebody who just opens this may look at this and go, dude, what am I supposed to do with this? So I don't have the answer right now, and people
Yeah.
don't
The
always
only
like
thing
to
I
hear
can
that. I don't have the answer right now. I have to put it in front of people.
Yeah, we do. And I'm really curious to see, like, because in your example, I don't think you meant to do this, but it does ask a lot or beg to ask a lot of questions, which is when we look at like the expanded connected miles.
Mm-hmm.
And in that case that you highlighted, we're building trust with the user. It looks like Monday we don't have any miles recorded for that user. And if the user like opens up the app and they see this, like, no, I drove on Monday, it's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
pretty obvious that we missed there.
Yeah.
We like I don't have an answer either. We have to almost like bookmark that and say like this is a question for the future. One day we know we're gonna have that answer, whether like it's imperative that people see within a glance without any additional taps
Mm-hmm.
over the last 7 days, all the days that they had committed miles or not.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have a reward system that's directly tied to that.
Mm-hmm. To some extent, like you're never
Yeah.
gonna get
Did you mean to share that in that little mock-up of yours?
what that there's no you didn't drive on a certain day.
Yeah, and that it would beg that kind of question.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the whole point is that it's the at a glance thing, but it's
Mhm.
again like you have to do some degree of you just have to do your homework, and we're still like we're still so early in the journey of this product that we're still learning, what do people want to do, what do people want to see more of, and before I make a decision like this to surface that, I want to know, is that a pain point for people?
Yeah.
Is that a point of, are people confused about that? Are people gonna get that information on a rewards tab anyway, that they're qualified? Do they care that they didn't drive on Monday, or do they care that they're qualified for baseline rewards for the week? Right? Like, which
Mhm.
one's more important? Like, do they care that there's a little, like, I drove to the grocery store, but I didn't record that? Or do they care that they're eligible for baseline rewards? Right? And what do you bias towards, like, surfacing to somebody off the bat? So, we're still learning, man, and that's the thing is like everybody who's in this community
Yeah.
here, I think, knows the stage that we're at, and that we are still doing, we're building on the fly a little bit, and we're doing a lot of requirements gathering and a lot of research, a lot of homework, and just like trying to understand. It's what any product does. You're just trying to understand, like, what do people like here? What am I solving for? And also, like, you never know, like, did I stumble upon something that people are like, dude, this rules, like, do more of
Yep.
this? And sometimes that happens and you go, okay, I guess so.
Yeah.
Why do you like that so much?
I think it's also like the good and bad of like progress. Like every time we lock in a piece, it's almost like it unlocks two or three more possibilities.
Yep.
And then you just have to decide like, am I done? Do I move to one of those routes? Or like if I go into one of those routes, is it gonna preclude the other one or two? And then I'm actually like, kicking
Yep.
myself later on. Uh it's interesting. It's super, super interesting. I don't think we're quite there yet, but I do think by the end of the year, we're going to be at this point where we can look at the project and be like, cool, like the foundation is really locked in. Like we've got this great basis for like, at one point we were tossing around this idea of like almost like a mechanic in your pocket. I don't think we're going to be quite there yet, but we're going to be like, we're going to be that health chart when the doctor comes into the door. People,
Somebody
uh,
does not like your idea.
probably not. But no, we're going to be like that health chart where the doctor comes into the door and like does a review of your case. Like you're going to be able to do that with your car. So just by pulling up your mobile app and being able to see like this is like where your
Yeah.
car is at. Like, and then we can just build and build and build on top of that. Or not
Yeah.
even just us build, other people build.
I think the other thing is just like that realization that I don't know if you keep hearing this guy is doing.
I
This
hear it.
guy is doing laps around my block. Apparently, it's a
You
nice
do a little
day.
burnouts.
I know
in
he's
your
literally
parking lot.
just doing. I can hear him going that way and coming back around. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but it's a beautiful Friday over here. So
He's awful.
he's dude's hanging out. The other thing is just like you realize how long some of this stuff takes, and
Yeah.
it's easy to put together like a dribble design that
Mhm.
is not really buildable, that like looks really flashy or whatever. But just given the amount of time that we have sunk into like understanding how people are using this, understanding the data that we're getting from these cars, understanding like how we account for exactly what you're saying, those edge cases of like we get nothing from you, dude.
Mhm.
That just like it just is not a fast process. And
No, it's
yeah,
not. I think this
I
is
think
a perfect spot to end. It's
I think
definitely
we just ended on Twitter. Like Shaolin says, uh,
get off the stage.
You are scheduled on Twitter until 3:30, so it will auto stop. So if you're still with us on YouTube, like and subscribe. No, smash that notification button.
Is that what they say?
That's what they say.
Okay.
Get the app. We're still hiring in lots of places. Please apply. Please tell us that you came from here. Yeah, and welcome back from the island.
Get in Discord. Tell us what you like and don't like about what we do here, for sure.
Yeah, it's
awesome, guys. Well, everyone have an awesome Friday and enjoy your weekend.